I'm Margo Malachowski, and my pronouns are she, her. I'm an education and outreach coordinator for the network of the National Library of Medicine. And welcoming you to Blossom, Building Lifelong Opportunities for Strength, Self-Care, Outlook, Morale, and Mindfulness. So we have a few housekeeping items. Some of you are going to hear this over and over again, but there's always going to be new people in session. So I want to make sure you know that, let me advance my slides. There is an event hashtag. It's hashtag Blossom 2021. Yesterday on Twitter, I saw someone say, what is this Blossom 21? There's some great tweets coming out about it. So that is us. For chat with your fellow attendees, please use the chat tab on the right in that conversations panel. If you have a question for the presenter, please submit them in the Q&A tab, and I will be collecting them and asking, I'm sorry, we're going to be talking about weathering the storms of change, speaking of weather, with our speaker, Wendy Peters. And I'll be giving Wendy the questions at the end of her presentation. This session is being closed captioned. To access the captions, please go to nnlm.gov/blossomcc. And just a reminder that by attending any of these sessions, you have agreed to our code of conduct. I know we're all professionals here. We appreciate your cooperation. And just to go over our acronyms, this is who is bringing you this wonderful program. The NIH is the National Institutes of Health, which is the leading medical research agency for the United States. And right now, many of you are familiar with the National Center for Allergies and Infectious Diseases, where Dr. Fauci is the director. But that's just one of many institutes and centers at the NIH. NLM is the National Library of Medicine, which is an institute of the NIH and is the world's largest biomedical library and produces electronic information resources such as Medline Plus and PubMed. NNLM is the network of the National Library of Medicine, and we are the outreach program of the NLM. RMLs are regional medical libraries, and that's where the network sits in 8 different regions of the country to produce regional and national programs. And now I am going to turn it over to Wendy.
Thank you, Margo. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wendy Kavehio Kalani Peters. And I'd like to start by acknowledging, because this is a national conference, maybe even international, I'm not exactly sure. I'd like to acknowledge the First Peoples across this nation and the continent, and recognize that their sovereignty was never ceded. And I'd like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging, and to those native cultures for their continued connections to land and community. And with that, I would like to introduce myself in a more traditional way, as is congruent with my culture. My name is Wendy Kavehio Kalani Peters, and I am a native Hawaiian daughter. I was born and raised on the island of Oahu to native parents. And my roots, my Hawaiian roots at least, extend as far back as there have been Hawaiians in the islands. I'm a community psychologist and a personal evolution coach. And I thank you all for joining my session today. And I want to thank the NNLM for inviting me to be part of this conference today. So with that, I am going to share, and pardon me, I have dogs. They are locked out, but for those of you in virtual land, you know how it goes, and I extend my deepest apologies for that. Okay, so the name of my talk is Weathering Storms of Change, Rebounding from disruptive life challenges. Sorry about that. Okay, so this is about me that I just finished introducing myself, and this is an overview of my talk. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we got to this place we're all at, and I imagine why you've joined my session today. I want to expound a little bit on what we've all been dealing with, and then recapitulate by checking in on what we're seeking and the kinds of things we need to do. At that point, I'm going to take a brief intermission with all of you staying here. You know, you can leave if you want, but I'm going to do a mindful minute, which is a short breathing exercise. I'll tell you more about it when we get there. I'm going to talk about a mnemonic that is SNAP, give more advice and suggestions, and leave some time at the end for any questions and answers you may have for me. So let's get going. How did we get here? Well, if you look at my at the images that I've put into this slide, you know, I really disdain people that read off of the PowerPoint slides. So I try to use a lot of imagery so that I can talk to you and that you can listen to what I'm saying versus try to listen to me and read at the same time. So we've been on a roller coaster ride for a few years now for a number of reasons. Front and center of this slide is the COVID virus. And we all know what that's like. We all know how that has changed our lives. And that I think was the culmination of so many other things that led up to that, which was, you know, the politics in this country, and I'm not going to get political in this talk, but, you know, there was a lot of political tension, resulting in a lot of racial tension, resulting in a lot of policy changes. There was a lot of activism in the last few years leading up to this. We had BLM, we had Me Too, we had LGBTQ rights. We've got a lot of people who want to come into this country, a lot of people who are already here who are not very happy with the way things are going. And then COVID came along, and it was like the tidal wave that washed over all of us, and none of us were spared. And when I say none of us, I'm not even just talking about the United States. I'm talking about the entire world. No one was spared from this. And so, you know, is it any wonder that a lot of us are on our last nerve, are just, you know, we feel like we're walking on thin ice every day. We're not really sure how to recover because there's been such a massive, like I said, it's like a tidal wave that has washed over us all. It has affected every single person. None of us have been isolated from this, and it has affected each and every one of us in a different way. And these things are all above and beyond our normal everyday stressors. You know, like getting the kids to school, out the door and to school on time, or making all your meetings and getting that proposal done for work, or you know, getting the house clean because we're having company, or just anything like that. These are normal stressors. All of these societal pressures have abounded for so long now, and they've certainly taken their toll. So what are we dealing with? Well, in the medical field or in psychology particularly, these stressors are called allostatic loads. And it's like I just described to you, that we've got all these normal stressors, but then all of a sudden we had this big tsunami of it. It seems like everything just imploding, exploding, washing over us. But no one was spared. And as a result, the allostatic loading has predominantly, caused a lot of fear, especially where illness is concerned, especially where COVID is concerned. Many of us are dealing with grief because we've had losses, or some of us are recovering from illness, from loss. It's also brought the racial inequalities that we have lived with on a daily basis. It's brought those more to the surface. So while you do see in the media reports of activism, of violence, of all of these kinds of things going on, for those of you who, well, I'm not sure who all is attending this conference, but it's sponsored by the medical librarians. And I, for one, do a lot of work in health disparities. So for me, the racial equalities have really surfaced, and I have seen them most clearly in the disparities that have come to the surface medically through all of this, and how a lot of these marginalized communities have not only had higher rates of illness, but they have also had higher rates of loss and death. We don't have answers for this just yet. It's too new. But something that has become a common issue was a term that one of my colleagues, she did a news report recently on the national news, and she was talking about coronasomnia. Have any of you heard of that term yet? A lot of people have been having troubles with sleep issues, not getting good sleep, and they're calling it coronasomnia because all of this tidal wave of stressors that we have been living under and has really impacted our mental health, and it's showing up in sleeplessness and sleep issues. And so professionals are now have now coined the term coronasomnia. And so what does this mean? We're actually undergoing a major shift, a major culture change. And again, I talked about the marginalization for ethnic communities, but a lot of this activism is about dismantling the systemic racism that has been the elephant in the living room for so many years. And yet, despite approaching it from many different angles by many different people over the years, it could just never get enough leverage to break the dam, if you will. And I think the dam has finally broken now. And there are a lot of us there who are advocating for equity, and we're becoming more and more a global community because, as I mentioned earlier, the pandemic didn't just affect the US, it affected the entire world. And in that, I think a lot of people have become more aware of how we are all connected and interconnected. And that's going to change a lot of things, the way we think about how we do things on an everyday basis. People talk about a new normal, but what is a new normal? What does that mean? We don't know yet. But what I can say is that there's less time and less money. Part of these stressors are that people are working harder. There's been job loss, job instability. There are going to be rising costs and inflation. We've already seen the cost of gas go up 75 cents just in the last month or so, 75 cents a gallon. People are worried about safety and security. All of these ways. Can you see where I'm heading with all of this? There's just so much. It's literally mind blowing, and that's why I'm here to talk about. In that, all of these things are whoops, wrong one. No, I guess that is the right one. My notes are out of order. Pardon me. But yeah, that's what we're here to talk about. So in the psychology community, we have a term called weathering. And yeah, weathering is a common term. It's not always used for psychological purposes, but I have these images to give you an idea of these before and after pictures. You see the statue on your left, on the left-hand side of the screen, almost 60 years later, or just a little over 60 years later, and you see how the detail in it has weathered away. Then there's a house that was struck by a tornado. It was not only decimated, but it was then leveled to its foundation so that it could start again. And that's kind of where I'm going to, pick up here, is that all of us have, I think many of us have elements of what you see in these images of weathering. In the psychology community, we characterize it as cumulative and multidimensional stress, which I was just finished talking about. That also results in high effort coping. What does that mean? It means that, there are some things that nag at you or get under your skin, and you can just brush them off and continue on. And then there are the things that just, you can't seem to shake it. And when this weathering happens and we have this cumulative and multidimensional stress, it gets under our skin and it impacts our social and behavioral pathways. So how does this show up? Well, it shows up physically, socially, and emotionally in many, many different ways. Now, and for some people it's extreme, and for others, they're a little more able to cope, but I guarantee you it's impacting everyone. I know for me, the holidays were particularly tough. I am grieving and recovering from a loss, and having to go through the entire season or period of COVID without being able to connect with those whom I have emotional ties with, having to have that physical distance and separation. And while I've made the best of my socialization through the virtual world, and everybody is now familiar with Zoom and also Zoom fatigue, it's not been a normal grieving process. It's been a very difficult process. I talked about coronosomnia, negative health behaviors. Weathering shows up in negative health behaviors like coronosomnia. There's how many of you, and I'm not calling anybody out, but what do they call it? Like they used to call it the college 15 or something, and now it's like the Corona 20, where we've all gained weight because we've been sitting at home doing Zoom time instead of out and about and being active. So a lot of us, are eating more poorly and gaining weight. Our health is declining somewhat. Okay, I don't mean to out myself, but and I'm certainly I'm barely a social drinker, but I've increased my alcohol intake, and so my blood sugars have gone up some because I'm drinking more. So there's a lot of things that they may seem insidious, but it's taken its toll on all of us. I don't think I'm alone. I know I'm not alone. I wish this could be more of a two-way than just through the chat, but I'll catch you on your comments and questions when we break. Blood pressure, people are having migraines. I say dis-ease, dis-ease, because disease are a result of stress, pressure, of being ill at ease with our lives and our lifestyles. And that's generally the origin of where chronic disease or even serious disease can start. And if anything, if there's ever been a time where people have been impacted by these kinds of elements that promote and encourage dis-ease, it would be now. It would be during this period that we've all lived through. And, you know, I'll talk about Corona, but that was really just the culmination of all of these other things combined. So it's not just Corona. And while I love to blame the coronavirus, again, all of these other problems were not necessarily spawned or caused by the coronavirus. A lot of them just happen to be exacerbated and amplified by the coronavirus. And then again, as I talked about health disparities previously, these elements of weathering are also exacerbated and are also further magnified by social stratification, and that is marginalization. It's the race and the socioeconomic elements that contribute to circumstances of health disparity. Oh, this brings me to what we're seeking, and also what is it that we need. So I would like to say that, you know, a long time ago, I was told that a need is not a want is not a need. They are not interchangeable. So what are we seeking and what do we need? So we are seeking a lot of things because we want them, but what is it that we need? Well, generally speaking, we need a purpose. Okay, we need a purpose, a reason to live, if you will. And believe it or not, even though some of us may be loners and introverts, we need our social connections. We need to be around other people. We need to be nurtured. We need to feel safe. And we need to have relationships that are trusting relationships, people that we can confide in, people that we can rely on. That's really, really, really important. I'm not talking about the superficial stuff. I'm talking about the real stuff, the stuff that gets us through weathering to the other side. Self-care is a biggie. That's basically what I'm going to talk about in a good deal of my presentation, about self-care and how we can achieve that, because I always talk about the oxygen mask theory. I travel a lot, and you know, we all know, any of us who have traveled in an airplane, that speech that the flight attendants give just before or just as you take off, and they do the whole demonstration with the oxygen mask, and they tell you, put the oxygen mask on yourself first, because if don't, you can't help anybody else. That's why most of the rest of this talk is going to be about self-care, because unless we are taking care of ourselves, there's no way we can effectively help and care for those that we care for and care about. So we're going to really concentrate on self-care and what that means. Now, this one people may not think is a need, and maybe it is not a need, but gratitude is an important characteristic to be mindful of. You know, because gratitude feeds us. And while, it's not about being submissive to anybody, it's not about cozying up to somebody, it's about appreciating all of the things that we have, taking stock of our blessings, so to speak, and in that, it helps your mental health. It helps the way you can engage on a daily basis. Negativity feeds itself, and the more negative we are, the more negative we become. Negative energy is a very, very difficult thing to hold, to manage, and to sustain. Positive energy, like gratitude, that feeds itself as well. So the more we can take on positive energy, the more we can cultivate a positive attitude, the better off we will be in coping with those things that are weathering us. Gratitude is one of the easiest ones to do, because again, it's just being mindful of the possibilities that surround us, of it's looking for the bright side, it's looking for the silver lining, it's looking for the positive in any situation, and appreciating. Now here's my mantra. This is my main mantra for everything in life, and it's what I tell everybody, because things happen for us, not to us. They happen for us. Even if you think it's the worst thing in the world, trust me, if you look hard enough, you will find a silver lining in that circumstance. So gratitude is one of the easiest things to begin cultivating on a minuscule basis, but it's like planting seeds, and it will grow and it will grow. And if you choose to cultivate the negative, know that the burdens you bear will get heavier and heavier, and they will result in things like dis-ease. Those origins of dis-ease, which becomes disease, it becomes chronic, it becomes life-threatening, and that is not the place we want to go. The last thing I want to talk about that we need is security. We want security of body. We want security in our livelihoods, in resources, like the toilet paper shortage. Yeah, it might not be a security issue to many of us, but it sure does seem like one when the grocery store shelves are bare. But in morality, and in family, health, property, we want to be safe. We want to go to bed at night knowing that we are safe, and we will wake up tomorrow and start a new day. And while these things may not seem like they're important, they are all important. And without these basic needs, our lives will erode, deteriorate, and spiral into it's embracing the weathering, and we become like those images that I showed you earlier. It just takes its toll on us. So here's that intermission I was talking about. We're going to do a mindfulness minute. I have a breathing exercise or technique. It's only going to take about 2 or 3 minutes, but for those of you who may need a bio break or who want to sit this one out, feel free. This is not physically exerting in any way. You can stay seated in your chair. Again, this is just a simple breathing exercise. It's primarily for beginners, but believe me, it helps clear your mind. It helps you to ground, and it helps you to calm down and begin that attitude of gratitude. So I'm going to talk you through it, and as I do, if you can just follow with me, we're going to inhale as deeply as we possibly can to the count of 4. I'm going to count you through it. Then at 4, we're going to pause and hold that breath to the count of 7. And then after the count of 7, we're going to exhale to the count of 8 and start all over again. And we're going to do this 3 times. And before we get started, I just want you to do a check. Do a physical check. Feel, how are you feeling in your body? How's your head feeling? How are your thoughts and your mind? Is your mind racing? Are you feeling not quite energetic today? So, okay, check in with yourself, and we're going to begin. So, on the count of one, again, take the deepest possible breath you can and fill your lungs. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And 1. Inhale. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, you can breathe normally now. This is a really simple exercise that anyone can do, and you can take that with you. Remember the numbers 4, 7, 8, and count them out. Sometimes we need more than just 3 rounds. We might need 5, maybe 6, especially if you're having a rough day. But this will help get you centered and a little more relaxed to face what lies ahead of you. And you can, it's free. You can take it anywhere. You can do it anytime. And hopefully it has been beneficial for many of you. All right. I mentioned earlier in my overview, I would talk about my mnemonic called SNAP mnemonic. It's like an acronym. It just stands for different things. And the first letter in SNAP is S. And these are the basic things for self-care. This is about self-care. Actually, I teach this. This information came from one of the textbooks in my behavioral physiology course. And my students are always amazed when they see it because, of course, they're students and they're literally burning the midnight oil at every turn, trying to keep up with life in general and also with school. So they always comment how much they enjoy this. It's easy to remember. It's not particularly easy to do, but we're going to start with the basics, and the basics are SNAP. Sleep. Make sure that you get good quality rest. It's difficult in the days of coronasomnia, but the more you practice this, the more routine and regular it becomes, the better off you will be. For most people, 7 to 8 hours enough. I know people that must have 10 hours of sleep. Personally, I get 4 to 5 hours of sleep, and I'm pretty good to go. And then every now and then, I'll catch up a little bit more, or I'll have a lazy day or two. But for most people, 7 to 8 hours is optimal. Do your best to get in a good sleep routine. Nutrition. I don't care what you eat. I don't care if you want to do paleo, keto, if you want to do carbs, whatever. But know this, that food is fuel for the brain, and you will not be able to think and do appropriately. It's just like that oxygen mask theory again, unless you are feeding yourself appropriately, unless you are giving your body adequate nutrition. I don't mean tons of food. I mean healthy food, healthy diet. The body, the physical body places its primary emphasis on digestion. Believe it or not, digestion is where the body puts most of its energy. And if you can keep the body running, it's like gas in your car, but every now and then you need an oil change. If you can keep that going and that momentum going with a healthy diet, your body will be healthier for it. So remember, nutrition is very, very important. And again, what was one of the first things I said of COVID? We all have that extra poundage. For some of us, it may even be the opposite. We've lost weight because we're so stressed out. We're not living in a healthy way. So sleep, nutrition. Third, activity. Again, that aligns with what I just said. That weight gain, or maybe even that weight loss. Regular exercise. Now, I'm not saying everybody has to crack that gym for 2 hours a day. I'm not saying that. But regular walks, or even, you can easily find chair exercises if you're less able. You can find a lot of these. They had an excellent presentation just prior to this on yoga. There are a lot of things that you can start really simple with. They can be free if you surf the web and you can find a routine, or you can find a video on YouTube. Use it. Get some movement. Your body needs movement. Your body needs activity. And get your juices flowing, because that will help to keep you healthy. It will help to keep you balanced. And then again, I'm going to say personal relationships. That's the P in SNAP. I mentioned that before. You need to connect with others, that you need to have, quality relationships in your life. And even for those that are not as deep and tight, you need to cultivate interest and curiosity in yourself. By doing that with others, get to know people, reach out. We are not meant to live in isolation, and that's what causes aging. It causes degradation. So, reach out, even if you have to just reach out on Zoom. That's why I don't get on Facebook, because I start reaching out, and the next thing you know, 4 hours is gone because I've been socializing on Facebook. So I have a Facebook page, but don't look to find me there, because I try to stay away from it because I get too much socialism on Facebook, and my schedule can't handle that. But personal relationships are very, very important. Okay, resilience. In doing my research for this talk, I know that resilience has sometimes gotten a negative rap in library circles, because I don't know why. And I heard some of the presentations about it, but honestly, I think resilience is a good thing. My doctoral research has to do with intergenerational trauma, but one of my groundbreaking discoveries, if you will, is the fact that the physiology doesn't care. It doesn't judge good or bad. It just responds. Resilience comes from being able to process our experience in a more healthy way that helps us to be regenerative. It helps us to build our mental, emotional, and social muscles, if you will. I'm not saying that there isn't some point where people don't get beat down or even come to a breaking point. What I'm saying is, though, that resilience isn't an all bad thing. So if you feel like you're being beat up, think about it. I just had a week like that last week. I had a bunch of students giving me pushback for not wanting to take responsibility for their coursework. So they're trying to put it on me, saying that I didn't give them enough time, or I didn't appreciate what they had to say, anything like that. And I had to check myself. Is this me? Am I being an ogre in the classroom, or Or is it that they are a typical student and they don't want to be responsible for themselves, despite the fact that they are non-traditional adult students, but they're just getting back into school and getting back into higher education, and they don't have good study skills or work skills yet. So think about what's going on, and see if it makes sense or if it doesn't. See where there can be value added in the circumstance by being aware of it, and process it that way. And again, as we reflect on these things, when something jars us, when it shakes us up, and we can reflect on it and then care for ourselves through it. Okay, maybe it was me. Maybe I need to be a little bit more communicative, or ease up on some of the work assignments, maybe shorten the length of the papers that I assign. But then maybe it isn't. Maybe I need to firm up. Maybe I need to hold the line. I did that last term. I got a beautiful letter from a student who said, "You really woke me up. I wasn't taking responsibility for myself, and I thank you, because now I will. You're the only reason why I'm going to be able to graduate, because had I failed your class as I deserved to do, I would have been expelled and not be able to finish my degree program. You allowed me to do that by giving me a second chance." So, there's good that can come from everything, but you want to be aware and pay attention to the things that jar your stability or your sensitivities, process them, and think about them, because not just as somebody accuses you of something doesn't mean it's right. And but what is right and true is the fact that you were moved by the circumstance. So in that movement, that's a sign, that's a teacher for you. It says take a closer look at this, dive deeper, and see what you can learn and gain from it. And in that, you will grow as a person. You will become stronger. You will become more resilient. And that's the positive, the upside of resilience. Resilience doesn't mean take as much as you can and keep on going. No, resilience means allow every opportunity to be introspective about who you are, what you can handle, and how it can contribute to your personal growth, and make you a stronger, wiser, more capable, empowered person. All right. Getting stressed out? Listen to your thoughts, think about it, and again, be aware. Don't be afraid to contradict. Look different alternatives to how you interpret things. That student, I said, I bailed him out more. I gave him a lot of slack for not just one course, for several courses. And that was it. That was the last straw. He just bailed on me. And then he came after the term was over saying, I can't fail this class. What can I do to reverse my grade? I felt sympathy for him, but I said, I just had a family member get sick who is elderly, and I have to go take care of them. I don't have time to work with you one-on-one during this break to help you reverse your grade. You're going to need to do it yourself. And if you're willing to do that, I'm willing to take another look at it. But was this about me? No, it was about him learning to, step up and step into his being responsible for himself. So, again, many ways to interpret a situation. We don't have to internalize everything. Let me bring in the term vocational awe at this point. I know that term was coined with regard to librarians and librarianship, and I want to say it's virtuous. You guys are wonderful. In my book, as an Indigenous person, I interpret, and my sister's a librarian, by the way. I interpret librarianism in the indigenous perspective of being a wisdom keeper, because that's what you guys do. It's a sacred honor to hold the wisdom of your people, no matter when your people existed. And I know you believe in that. I know that you give service through heart and compassion, not just for the paycheck, because I teach. I know those paychecks, they don't go that far. But the reality is, vocational is real. And again, it's why the resilience thing gets a bad rap, because you think you're expected to push until you can't anymore and then keep going. And that's not true. Think of the oxygen mask. Think about how you won't be able to help anybody else if you're down for the count. Think about that, because you do what you do because it is a sacred calling for you. But without you, none of us can do what we need to do. Don't think I didn't spend a lot of time in the library preparing for this talk. I appreciate what you do. So positive pathways. I talked about that. That's what I talked about as far as being aware, paying attention, with the gratitude. These positive pathways reinforce, and they feed on each other. They contribute. Negative pathways work the same way, unfortunately. So it's your choice. You choose. Hopefully you'll choose a positive pathway and make habit. Storytelling is one way to to tell yourself. It's self-talk. It's helping to develop a habit or a practice. Okay. So I'm not sure where I'm at. So self-care is important. You need it to function. It contributes to your energy, your vitality, your confidence. And, and that contributes to your physical health, your mental, spiritual, and lifestyle. This is just some food for thought here. Marco, how am I doing on time?
Yeah, so we've got about 12 minutes on.
For the whole thing?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, so the rest of these things, again, I hate people read slides to me because I can read. So I'm going to assume that most of you can read, if not all of you. And I'm just going to step through my slides here and talk a little bit. All of this just reiterates most of what I said in my talk. And how do we practice self-care? My PowerPoint will also be with the conference materials, and I'm sure you'll be able to access it after the fact. So, if you don't have time to read everything that's here, know that these notes can be found after this talk. I want to share a cool idea with you. Create a self-care box, one for yourself, one that you can share. Put stuff in there that makes you have positive energy, positive thoughts, happy memories. Put it there, and then break it out when you're having a rough day or a bad time. Let it remind you of the goodness in your life. And you can scale this. I have a traveling one. It's a tiny, it's tiny. You can literally get them for $1 at the craft store, the little boxes. And I put like a little crystal, a little rock. I have these little miniature things that are meaningful to me. And I carry this because I travel a lot, and it helps. So, if nothing else, do that. Start there. Not all of this is brain science. Create your own rituals. A ritual is something that's repeatable, that you call a ritual, and that has significance to you. We have rituals, baptisms, weddings, birthdays. We have cultural rituals. You may have religious rituals or your own cultural rituals, but you can make your own. This, when you create a ritual, like, you are declaring this to the universe, that this is this will help you to become aware. It will help you to initiate change in your life. Consider a ritual, just like the 4-7-8 breathing technique. Make a ritual. Maybe you need a calming ritual. Do that. But in order to be a ritual, it has to be, you have to formalize it in some way. Meaning, formalize it in giving it a structure and make it repeatable, and do the same thing every time. Because rituals do have power. Shore up your foundation. Because here's the thing. The 4-7-8 technique can calm you down. It can center you. But is it going to last? What is lasting is to get down to your foundation, like that image I showed early on in the talk. Get down in the foundation and start rebuilding life. Because even with the weather, if the weathering has taken its toll, the only way around that is to start to rebuild. So think about your circumstances and how you're going to rebuild, and start by using these simple tricks to build yourself up. We all have reinvented ourselves. This is one of those opportunities. It's not a chore, it's an opportunity to rebuild yourself. This is the silver lining that has come from all of this weathering, from all of these devastating things that we've been living through. Make it an opportunity. Okay, so I'm down to the Q&A. Margot?
Hey, Wendy, this is Bobby. I'm going to jump in here real quick for a second.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this presentation and your perspective and insight. And I can see from the tweets that there was a lot of positive response to what you were saying. But there is one thing I want to jump in on, and I want to remind everyone here that your weight is not an indicator of your health or your worth. And I know we all have some internalized things, and I'm just going to share some personal stuff at this point, because this is a conference that I have put my heart and soul into, and so I'm going to be a little vulnerable. We have all gone on a lot of journeys during this pandemic. Some have been short, some are long. We're still in the middle of a lot of them. Me personally, one of the best things that has happened to me during this time is learning to love and accept my body for exactly how it is right now at this moment. It has carried me through some unbelievable trials of my life. It has lifted me up in the happiest moments. It has been a comfort to the people I love in their hardships and in their joy. And I really want to stress that your weight is not your worth. If you can do movement and find joy in that, that is great, and I want you to do that. Everyone should be eating as healthy as possible, but you should also eat for joy. Food is fuel, and bread is delicious. You can have gluten. So I just want to kind of re-steer us back on that and share that personal information. But Wendy, I'm going to hand it back over to you. Lots of great comments. People are really enjoying the direction and the talk about the pyramid and the thing that you showed. So thanks. Great. I'm going to get off the stage.
Thank you. Thank you, Bobby. Not fat shaming, not, I'm not saying what your ideal weight is. I'm just saying that a lot of us have allowed the weathering to take a toll on us. So I'm encouraging more healthy behaviors. So just to clarify that, because I myself am, I have my own issues. And so, yeah, not trying to do that. So Margot, Q&A?
Yes. Yeah. So one of the really interesting, so there were some good questions, and one was about, do we have psychological surge capacity? We've been hearing a lot about surge capacity in the hospitals around coronavirus, and the person who put it in was talking about the workplace, and supporting your staff. But I also thought about clinicians that support our mental health. Do you have any thoughts on that? Do we have surge capacity?
Not. It depends. It depends on the individual and how well they have, how strong is that foundation. So sometimes the storm can come along and it just blows the house right off its foundation, just tears it up, even including the foundation. And other times things are more able to withstand. So the surge capacity is really more of a result of how well you have prepared yourself or how strong your foundation is. Some of us are more susceptible and more vulnerable to stress and pressure, and we're more vulnerable to even buckling under the pressure because we have not prepared ourselves well enough. And when I say prepare, we're not particularly resilient because we've been enabled a lot of the times. Those of us who have struggled through greater challenges and have been able to find that resilience in ourselves are more able to tolerate these things. And so it's going to vary on an individual basis. And if you find yourself getting stressed to that point, whether it's in a short period of time or over a longer period of time, then I highly encourage you to get some professional help, get some counseling, because there's no shame in that. We all need, and that's the relationship piece I'm talking about. We all need someone to be able to lean on, to be able to help support us through some of the trickier times.
Yeah. People were wondering if you could just, you're still sharing your slides. Could you go back to show the pyramid slide? A couple of people were interested in seeing again.
Okay. Hold on.
Yeah.
Tell me when to stop. I'm not. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know which one was the pyramid slide. Maybe there wasn't one.
I don't know. Can somebody
yeah, I'm sorry. It wasn't the pyramid, but it looked like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is a pyramid. So that was what was happening in my brain.
Oh, okay.
It was the need.
Oh, okay. This one. This information is, in fact, based on Maslow's hierarchy, but it's just a little bit more. Is this what you guys were referencing?
Oh, I think that's it.
Somebody said I'm the SNAP one? Okay, hold on.
No, okay.
This one?
Yeah, that's great. And so we're really at time now. So I know the recordings are going to be available. Bobby, are there ways to get the slide? That's a common question.
Yeah, so we've asked the speakers to send us a final copy of their slides, and we're going to get those on the Hey Summit website. So what you're going to see probably in about a week is the recordings on the Summit website, slides, links to the slides, and also if the speakers have provided us with any other resources, those will be there too. And you will get an email about that. So
here are some recommendations. In my slide, I will be giving them to Bobby. And if anybody wants to contact me, my website is nativeteachings.org. And my email is drwendy@nativeteachings.org. And if you want to go to my website, I have a freebie for you. So.
Right.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much. So everybody, the next session is starting in 30 minutes. So we do encourage you to get up away from your screen, give yourself a little bit of a break. And then if you come back before the 30 minutes is up, you might want to check out the arena where we have some booths, or the lounge to connect with your fellow attendees. So thanks everybody for attending this session, and we'll see you in the next one.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. This video was produced by the network of the National Library of Medicine. Select the circular channel icon to subscribe to our channel, or select a video thumbnail to watch another video from the channel.